Sean here again, and I'm just bringing you a next book in our leadership series. It's called Shifting the Monkey by Todd Whitaker. And I like this caption right on the top. It says, "The art of protecting good people from liars, criers, and other slackers." This book is all about leadership and the art of delegation. It's also about protecting people from others who are trying to pass off their responsibility onto your best employees or your best workers or your best teachers or whatever your scenario is. And it breaks down 3 questions from a leader's point of view. Where's the monkey, meaning responsibility? Where should the monkey be? Who should have that responsibility if they're doing their job or not? And how do I shift that monkey to its proper place? And this book does a great job of just really giving perspective to people's roles and how often many people who are your best employees or best workers are actually carrying the most work. And some of that is by choice, but some of that is because of others who are pushing their responsibilities onto others. And I think this book is so relatable. If you've been in any leadership role, you'll be able to connect with this book right away, because I'm positive you've seen it. If you're a young leader, or you know you're going to be in a leadership role one day, maybe you're not there yet, I encourage you to check this book out, because as young people and young leaders, sometimes we want so much responsibility, but that maybe we're not ready for, or we want so much and then we get overwhelmed and we don't do any of them well. Great leaders are now able to identify who their best workers are and make the decisions based off their best workers, not the slackers. How many times in an organization have you seen rules or emails or things come out based off the worst case scenario and trying to curb that bad behavior, but not really addressing those who are doing the best workers? And sometimes protocols and procedures are brought into place to try to create an atmosphere where the worst employees or those who are slacking in their work, they try to curb that behavior. But what does it do is it creates unnecessary burdens for your best employees. And so those who are doing it well aren't able to be as effective because they now have this new protocol that's impacting them because of these people over here. And great leaders make the decisions based off their best, not their worst situations or worst employees. And when I say worst employees, that's not necessarily meaning that they're bad individuals. They may be young individuals or inexperienced individuals. And so they're not the strongest yet in the organization that you are in. So anyway, again, Shifting the Monkey by Todd Whitaker, about responsibility, delegation, and as a leader, how to protect your best employees. I like this book a lot. For myself personally, just a couple stories. One that this really tapped into and made it meaningful to me in some other ways is when I was in the Salvation Army world. This was years ago, almost over 12 years ago. Right out of college, I was a young leader. I was very excited to be leading. I'm very nervous. At the same time, I got put in charge of an after-school summer program. I had a small staff under me, and I just remember feeling very overwhelmed. I never worked 40-plus hours and had to be basically the buck stopped with me on things, and so I felt like I had to be a part of everything and just feeling very overwhelmed. Well, I also was in college. I was part of the registrar and some of the other financial department for work study, so I had some experience in some of that programming or what programs they use. Well, our bookkeeper at the Salvation Army had moved to another job. We hired someone, and then that person went to a 10-day training and then came back, dropped off the computer, and quit. They were gone. They left. Since I had a little bit of experience with the program, me and my supervisor, we limped along in the bookkeeping department until we could get someone in there who knew what they were doing. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed because I had my job I was doing and trying to manage that, do that well. I was helping in the bookkeeping. It was the holiday season, so there's so much more to do. We different programs, different activities. I'm involved in those too. I was part of a ministry outside of the Salvation Army world. I'm feeling very overwhelmed and stressed. And to this day, I remember this experience. I was on the floor. I'm sifting through papers. We were looking for some bill or something that came in that was filed away, and we're not sure where it was. My supervisor, he's at the desk, and I'm on that floor, and he's telling me that we need to get gas caps with locks on them because there was some people sifting gas going around. We also wanted to get those things that you attach to the lights that when you go in reverse, it goes beep, beep. And I was responsible for the vehicles because I was the main one using the vehicles in our organization. And I remember to this day literally sinking closer and closer to the floor. Like I just felt like this one more burden was put on me. And I just felt so overwhelmed. And I don't know what this phrase was or how exactly he said it, but my supervisor said this to me. He says, "Sean, you have a staff, use them." And he knew that this had to get done, but this wasn't his monkey to take care of. He knew it needed to be done. It was my monkey, so he passed that along to me. But he didn't expect me to have to fulfill it directly, individually. I had, during the school year, 3 staff members that had time in the day. I could easily have given them this errand and passed that along. And there was a breakthrough moment there for me where I understood that I couldn't do everything, that I couldn't manage everything, that I had to start utilizing that, but that I also added a new responsibility. As a leader, I had to protect my staff from being overwhelming them with too much. So I'm not saying I was perfect since then or have been since then, but that was the breakthrough moment where it really opened my understanding to delegation, of knowing when to take it on and when to give it away. But it also led to me to when to come alongside and help others with taking responsibility away from others so we don't burn them out, because that really is the end result if we don't manage this well. Last story, and I'll finish. This is just one I remember from those years as well that is just stuck with me over all this time. So I'm going to change their name. I'm going to call them Betsy. And anyway, Betsy was clocking in, and she was clearly overwhelmed. She had work, she had school that she was attending, college courses. So she also had internship. She was also active in her church, and then just whatever she was going on in her personal life. And so she was clearly stressed. And I don't know what possessed me to do this, but she's clocking in, as I said. And I said, "Well, Betsy, I need you to do A for me." And she goes, "Okay." And I'm like, "And then after that, could you do B?" And she's like, "Okay." And I just kept adding it, and I'm wondering, how far could I push this? She's not looking at me. She hasn't made eye contact. I clearly could tell she's overwhelmed. And so I just kept adding and adding and adding and adding. And she just got deflated. Her voice got lower and lower. And all she said is, "Okay, okay, okay." And finally I go, "Betsy, look at me." She looks at me, and she's just like this look of like, ugh, total exhaustion. And I go, "You don't have to do any of that." She cocks her head like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's okay if you're feeling overwhelmed to say no." Sometimes we need to know as leaders or young leaders that are growing when enough is enough, where we are overwhelmed, and to set boundaries. That if you can't do everything and do it well, maybe you need to cut back and you need to cut some things loose. And I encourage you to talk to your leader or supervisor, let them know the situation is, because wherever you are, if it's in ministry, if it's at school, or if it's in the workplace, your leader wants to keep you. And if they're delegating to you, they believe you probably can do it. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, I encourage you, get some help. So, again, last time, Shifting the Monkey by Todd Whitaker. Highly recommend it. It is one of my favorites. It's definitely one I'm going to read again. There's a few books that I've read and I probably will never read again, but this is one of those that I'm going to read again.